I built the ultimate consistent character UGC machine right here in n8n. As we talked about in the video we did on this 6 days ago, we suspected the ability to call characters from Sora that you create would come to the API programmatically. Well, it has. You can now use KIE.ai's API to call characters that you've created in Sora so that you can programmatically generate video clips with those characters. It's likely that KIE has early access to this feature, but I'd expect this capability to roll out to the Sora 2 API directly very soon. This is huge because it allows us to programmatically create video content with the same AI characters in any scene we want. And so we can demonstrate this functionality with our UGC consistent character video ad generator. Here's how it works. We're going to execute the workflow, and we just need to mention the username of the character that we've created in Sora. Then we'll just upload an image of the product that we want to create an ad on, as well as the URL for the company. In this case, we're going to create an ad for Olipop, the drink company. So we'll kick that off. Now what this workflow is going to do is we're going to scrape all the relevant content from the Olipop website and snag the full Sora 2 prompting guidelines from OpenAI. We'll then use this to build a prompt that essentially says, you're an AI creative director specializing in generating high impact direct response video ads using generative models like Sora. Your task is to translate a creative brief into 3 distinct ready to use Sora prompts for short UGC style video ads. So what this prompt is going to do is it's going to analyze the creative brief, which we can see here, and it's going to come up with 3 different settings for ads for the brand Olipop. It will write full scripts for each scene and for each ad concept, and then it will loop through each of these with the KIE API. The output is we've programmatically generated multiple different Olipop ads with the same character in different scenes and settings. Check it out.
Oh my gosh, it's Olipop. It tastes exactly like a classic strawberry soda, but it only has 4 grams of sugar and it's amazing for your gut health.
Okay, you guys, I was just at the store and was craving a soda so bad that I grabbed my secret weapon instead.
You get the idea?
Okay, if you're trying to cut back on sugary sodas, but you still crave that fizz, you have to try Olipop. It's packed with fiber, has way less sugar, and honestly, this flavor is just incredible.
Really cool. So we can use workflows like this to literally generate hundreds of high quality video ads for our brand. If you want to download this n8n template completely for free, including all the prompts, you can snag it in our AI automation mastery community completely for free. You'll just go to the n8n template section, click the post for the automation that you want to download, and then you'll download the JSON right here, and you can import that directly to your n8n. All right, so that concludes the high-level demo of this automation. Next, we're going to jump into a node-by-node breakdown with Lucas. Before we jump into that breakdown, though, I do want to let you guys know that our team here at The Recap is launching an end-to-end AI ad platform called Fabric. It's going to be incredible. The most realistic lifelike ads built end-to-end with AI, so you don't have to mess around with n8n. You can simply use the Fabric platform to generate winning ads for your company. We're going to be launching version 1 of the product soon, but to get early access, just click the link in the description of this video and then you can join the waitlist and we'll get you early access to the product. So seriously, if you like the content that we've created on this channel, please go sign up for the waitlist for Fabric. It's going to be an incredible product and we'd love to get your feedback on it when it's ready. So sign up for the waitlist, and now let's jump into the node by node breakdown with Lucas.
All right, I want to kick things off here with a system overview for our Sora 2 API consistent character UGC video generator. I know that's a mouthful, but let's dive into it. The first thing I want to cover is going to be the system entry point and the trigger for this whole automation. If we look over here at n8n, we have a form trigger all set up. And we're going to take in a couple of different inputs to kick off and use this whole system. One is going to be the brand's homepage URL that we're trying to create an ad for. 2 is going to be a 720 by 1280 picture of whatever product we're trying to insert in this UGC video ad and promote. So I have this Olipop image prepared right here that's matching those dimensions. And 3, this is going to be the username of our Sora 2 character, who's going to be consistent in all of these video UGC ads that we're generating. So if you haven't set this up before, make sure you check out our previous video, but I'll give you a sneak peek of what that looks like. If I come over to Sora 2, we can go to this profile / Olipop Ashley character that I created. This is going to be the character we're going to feature in all of our UGC video ads going forward from now. So we can see on every single video, they have the same look, feel, and voice of this Ashley character, which is exactly what we're trying to do. And so the input to the system is going to be just this Olipop Ashley name. So that covers it here for the system entry point and trigger. Let's move on to the next part of the automation, which is going to be performing some context engineering and putting together our Sora 2 video prompts. The first thing we're going to do here is go ahead and scrape the homepage URL of the brand we're trying to create this UGC video ad for. This is going to be important context we want to bundle in to whatever ad we're writing, just so the UGC character is stating accurate facts and knows what benefits to reference when they're talking about our product. The next thing we're going to do is actually use Firecrawl once again to go ahead and fetch and scrape the latest version of OpenAI's official Sora 2 video prompting guide. This is just this URL right here, and so if I open it up, we're going to see all the best practices that are currently in place for working with the Sora 2 video model. So all important context we want to bundle together when we leverage AI to write our Sora 2 video prompts. After that, we're going to go ahead and use Gemini 2.5 Pro to go ahead and bundle together all of this context we've built up and ask Gemini to go ahead and write 3 different prompts for us to create these UGC video ads that eventually get passed off to Sora 2. And so that's going to be the third step here, is actually generating these videos with the prompts we just created. So if we come down here to the bottom part, we're going to see that we have this loop set up here that loops over every single prompt we just wrote and calls into the KIE.ai API to go ahead and use the Sora 2 video model. Looking at the KIE AI docs, we can see they have this Sora 2 Pro image to video model, which is perfect for our use case, where we want to reference a character we've already made from that username, and then we're going to pass in an image of our product that we want to be promoted inside whatever video we generate. So we have our character, we have our product image, and then we're going to pass in that script or the Sora 2 prompt we generated here to stitch everything together. So we're going to trigger that for each of the 3 video scripts we passed in. We're going to pull the status from their API endpoints because generating video takes a long time. And as soon as that video finishes generating, we're going to download that video and send that off to Google Drive to complete our automation. So that covers it here. Let's move on to the full n8n automation build out. Like I mentioned from before, the trigger is going to be an important part of the system that is taking in some context for us to use to later bundle together into our final Sora 2 video script. So let's go ahead and execute this workflow and start filling this context out. First thing we need is going to be our character username. And so if we go over to Sora for the character we've already created, remember, watch our previous video on this if you want to learn how to create the video. Go ahead and copy your username here, come back to the character form, and then we're going to do @, paste in that username, and then we're good there. The next thing we need is going to be our 720 by 1280 dimensioned product image. So I just went into Canva, cropped out this image, and scaled it up so we have a high def image of our Olipop can. So we'll save that as well. The last thing we need to do is go ahead and grab the homepage of whatever brand we're trying to build this UGC video for. So I just went to drinkolipop.com. I'm going to grab that URL, and then we're going to come back here and submit this so we can see what data looks like running through the entire system. So looking back at our form trigger here, we can see a couple of different form elements we filled out that matches everything we covered here on the system overview. First thing is going to be our Sora 2 character name. That's a simple text element type. We have our product image, which is going to be a PNG required file. We're going to select it as a file element, and we just call this product image for easy reference later throughout the automation. The final field here is going to be the website URL of the brand we're trying to create this for. So it's another text element here. I just have this website placeholder in as an easy reminder, and we're also going to mark this as required. So that covers it here for the form input. And then if we click view, we're going to see that same product image I just uploaded, and that is getting passed throughout the full system. The next note is going to be a simple HTTP request I've set up to go ahead and upload this image of our Olipop can here to this tempfiles.org website. This was just some free API that I found that allows you to upload files that disappear after 60 minutes just so we can temporarily use it and get a link back here. The reason I'm doing this is because our KIE.ai API does require us to pass in an image URL parameter here, and so we're going to reuse this later when it comes time to actually call into the Sora 2 API. So that's just a temp step we're going to come back to later. We get 60 minutes to work with this file, so keep that in mind for any really large bulk workflows you're doing, or offload this to some more permanent host to store that image. The next thing we're going to do here is jump into this Firecrawl community node we have set up. And so if you have community nodes enabled, you can just search for Firecrawl and then use this scrape a URL and get its content operation. So I'll pull this up so you guys can see what this looks like. And we have our Firecrawl credential connected, which is something I already set up. If you're doing this for the first time, click on create new credential, and it's going to pre-fill these settings. And the only thing you need to add in here is going to be your API key. And so if you haven't done this from before, or you're just getting set up for the first time, go to the firecrawl.dev website, go to the dashboard, and then you're just going to be able to copy this key from the right-hand side and paste it in here. But I'm going to use the one I've already set up for now so we can continue forward. The other thing I want to touch on before going through these other options is why am I using Firecrawl here? Firecrawl is this scraping platform that's perfect for extracting content and context from websites to later get passed off into a large language model. And so that's exactly what we're doing here to get our Sora 2 video script put together. And so we're going to go from a raw websites link, so the homepage of the Olipop website, and get structured markdown content back, which is going to be really easy to work with when we call into other AI APIs like Gemini 2.5 Pro. And so I'm a big fan of Firecrawl and use it anytime I need to scrape something. And so we have our credential, we have our operation to scrape a URL and get its content. We're going to pass in the website URL from the form trigger from before. And so drinkolipop.com, that's the page we want to scrape. And then when we go down here, we're going to specify a format with type of markdown. This is going to be the preferred format for any data we extract from a website and makes it really easy to work with large language models. So I'd recommend you just use Markdown and keep the rest of the defaults here. Everything else here is set to default. The only other thing I want to call out here is the timeout milliseconds parameter in case you're hitting issues with your request timing out. If it's a really large page you're trying to scrape, or there's a lot of kind of asynchronous loading going on, you may need to bump this up to a higher number to avoid those timeout errors. So just keep that in mind. Everything else will remain the same here, and so we're going to continue forward. The next thing we do here is yet another Firecrawl, scrape a URL and get its content operation. But this time, we're just going to use the static web page here, which contains OpenAI's latest edition of the Sora 2 prompting guide. This guide is going to be something we bundle together in the context window for a large language model call we're making into one of the APIs, just to tell the AI how it can best write a prompt to later get passed off to Sora 2. So we're kind of going to be running our Sora 2 prompts here in two different stages. One is going to be actually working with a tool like Gemini to go ahead and write our prompt. And then we're going to take that prompt and later pass that off to the Sora 2 API here in step number 3. So it's a two-stage process to get our videos actually created. And so we're going to scrape this, get that content back as Markdown once again by specifying that Markdown type underneath formats, and we'll leave all these defaults exactly the same. I do want to call out this step is not required. You could just copy and paste the content here instead of using Firecrawl to scrape it. But by using Firecrawl, we're making sure we're always getting that latest version in case OpenAI pushes out an update to their prompting guide. So that covers it here for that initial context building, kind of that context engineering part of the system overview we were talking about. The next step here is to actually call into Gemini 2.5 Pro to analyze all of this context we've bundled together and spit out 3 separate Sora 2 prompts for us to later make that video. And so that's what's going to be happening in these next 2 nodes here. So I'll pull this up and we are going to see we're actually using an HTTP request node to call into Gemini 2.5 Pro. The reason I like to set it up this way is because using the HTTP API with Gemini 2.5 Pro, it really makes it easy to kind of set up multimodal requests where we're passing in text plus image or even video to analyze if we want. And so it gives us a good foundation to extend this context analysis in a way we need. And so I know there's a couple built-in Gemini nodes. I think either Gemini or Vertex. You can search it here on the right-hand side. But personally, I like to use the old-fashioned HTTP request way just to get a little bit more control off of building these requests. And so diving into my way, we're going to be using the post method. We're going to be making our HTTP request to this URL at generativelanguage.googleapis.com. And then at the very end here, we're going to be specifying Gemini 2.5 Pro generate content just to tell the API this is the model we want to use and the action we want to take. All of this is listed underneath the Gemini API docs. And so if you need to make changes here, I encourage you to check that out. But we're going to be doing a simple request for now. The next step of this is going to be configuring our authentication credentials in order to successfully call into the Gemini API. I select generic credential type. We're going to be using header auth. And then I already have a Google Gemini credential set up here. If you're doing this for the first time, you should go ahead and create a new credential that is a header auth credential And we're going to need to fill out a name and a value text box here in order to set this up. The first thing we got to do is go over to aistudio.google.com, click on Get an API Key, create an API key, and then we're going to go to the API Quick Start to see what values we need to specify. So after you go through the create an API key steps, copy that key, save it later, because we're going to need to paste it back in. But if we go to the Quick Start once again, and then scroll down here to where it says REST, we can see we have this header line here where we're specifying this Goog API key. So we want to copy the first part of this before the colon, and we'll paste that in as name. And then after that, we are going to go ahead and get that API key we just generated, and we're going to paste that in as our value. So we have the name, we have the value, where the value is that unique API key we just created, and then we're going to be able to save this. I already have mine set up, so there's no need to do that for now. So set that up and then select that as Google Gemini here underneath that final dropdown. Let's go forward to actually structuring our request body. We're going to toggle on send body. We're going to use the JSON content body type, and we're going to specify it as using JSON, and then set up a new expression here for us to dynamically insert all of that context we just fetched and bundle it together into our API call. And so we have this JSON.stringify call here where we pass in the prompt. And let's go a step backwards to see how we structured this prompt. First node before this, before we're actually calling into the HTTP request, is going to be a simple set field node like we have right here, where we simply set a string field called prompt to dynamically build out an expression for all that context we need. And so we split it up into identity, the core task, the output format we're looking for, and then we define a creative brief that kind of breaks down some of the inputs that are expected to get passed into the system. Let me go through a few of these key points, but I'm not going to touch on everything because we do give away these prompts completely for free included in this n8n automation template. And so if you want to get access to this completely for free, just click on that first link in the description of this YouTube video. That's going to take you to our school community called AI Automation Mastery. And then you're just going to be able to download the n8n template for this automation underneath this n8n templates tab. That's going to contain the prompts, the n8n template, and everything you need to get up and running with this automation. Let's go back to the prompt. We have our identity here. This is going to be a simple setup where we put AI into the role and the mindset of what it's going to be doing. So you are an expert AI creative director specializing in generating high impact direct response video ads using generative models like Sora. Your task is to translate a creative brief into 3 distinct ready-to-use Sora prompts for short UGC-style video ads. We're taking in this creative brief, and we want to output 3 separate Sora 2 video ad scripts. And those are going to be the prompts that we pass into our call to generate the Sora 2 video. So the core task of this is to first analyze the provided creative brief, including raw text and product image, to synthesize the product's core message and visual identity. Then for each of the 3 UGC ad archetypes, so those are things we're defining for the 3 videos we want to make, generate a prompt packet according to the specified output format. All generated content must strictly adhere to both the Sora 2 prompting guide and the core directives. This is just more setup where we're bundling together all of that context we got from before, and we're telling the AI when it analyzes this how it should best use it to output these 3 kind of prompting packets to get passed off to Sora. Then we're going to break down the output format we're expecting, kind of getting into, the camera, technical capabilities, any audio going on, talking through the product scale and fidelity, just to make sure the dimensions of our product match up to what we would expect in reality if we were filming this video ourselves. And then we're just breaking down further context for this creative brief. More technical details then come below underneath core directives. And so we want everything like a true UGC video to be filmed from an iPhone aesthetic. We're going through timing and pacing, clarity and focus, and setting up some guardrails here for brand safety, just because some of the Sora 2 API constraints built around it, they can be a bit finicky with what it accepts and rejects in terms of video it can generate. So we just want to be a little bit on the safe side here so we don't waste our credits trying to generate a video that results in an error. Finally, at the bottom, we have all of our inputs we're going to pass in dynamically since we built this as an expression. And so we have our username for the character to promote. We have all of this data we've scraped here from the Olipop website. There's a lot to it. And then at the bottom here, we're going to have our Sora 2 prompting guide, which is what we were able to extract from that URL we pasted in from before. So all of this great context getting passed in, that is going to be analyzed and referenced by Gemini 2.5 Pro to come back with 3 separate prompts. We generate that. If we look here on the right-hand side underneath our nested response, we're going to see some analysis and then our output tokens here for those prompts that were written. We get this data back as a single text field here. And so we are going to do a little bit of post-processing on that response to go ahead and extract a structured array of those 3 prompts, like we see here, like 0, 1, and 2, from that single large piece of text. So we're going to use Gemini 2.5 Pro once again with a simple prompt to go ahead and extract an array containing each of those prompts. Just scrolling through this a little bit, we can see we have our on-the-go testimonial. We have our driver's seat review, which is a UGC video ad of a person just filming from in the car. And we have our at-home demo, which is likely going to be someone, filming from home at their kitchen or in some other common room with the product in hand. This matches what we're expecting here, and it's kind of followed those 3 ad archetypes we defined from before. But you're not just constrained to this. We built up a pretty generic prompt here just to give 3 examples. You do have total customization here on what output you want on the prompt we're creating for right here. So if there's a UGC type of ad that is viral for your niche or for your product or for your client's product, go ahead and slot that archetype in, add some more context around it, and I think you're going to be impressed by what the results actually look like here, just pushing that through the system. It covers it here for the section 2, where we're building up our context and constructing these Sora 2 prompts to later get turned into videos. Last thing I want to touch on before moving on to the next section is going to be just this split out node, where we take that structured array of prompts, split them out into 3 separate items, and so then we can start using this batch loop over each and every item. So we're going to do all of this processing for prompt 1, we're going to do all this processing for prompt 2, and finally do it for prompt 3 until we're completely done. Covers it here. Let's jump into working with the KIE AI API and generating these videos. Let's now dive into step number 3 here, which is going to be actually generating our Sora 2 videos. So like what I mentioned before, we're going to be looping over each of those written prompts one by one and running that through the pipeline. And so for the first prompt we wrote, if we pull this up, we're going to see that this is our high energy UGC style video of a low angle shot of somebody walking through the city, kind of recording themselves and talking about the Olipop product. The first thing we have to do to generate this video is make an API call into the KIE AI API. This is going to be to this URL that we have here underneath their API. And we're going to be doing /v1 jobs create task. This is just how they structured their API to go ahead and start long running generations. And so I should be able to pull up the Sora 2 Pro image to video model, which is going to be the one we're wanting to use. Go to the API, and we're going to see that they're documenting the 2 endpoints we can work with here. So once again, that v1 jobs create task endpoint matches what we're doing right now. So we'll go forward from there, making a post request. And then the last thing we have to do here before we get into the request body is going to be setting up our authentication. This is going to be a header auth type using the generic credential type. So I have it configured here, but if you're setting this up for the first time, go ahead and create a new credential, call it KIE AI API, or whatever else you want to name it. Then we got to provide a name and a value option. KIE has this API key link here. If you're going from the model API, and then click on API key management, it's going to take you to this page where you're going to be able to copy your API key. We're not quite ready to paste this in just yet because we do have to configure the name of this header. And so if I go over to the docs for KIE AI, we can see that underneath the using your API key section, they do tell us how to set up this header. And so the header name is going to be authorization. So we can copy that, paste that here. That's what's before the colon. We don't want to include that. And then the value is going to be everything after. So the first thing we have to do here is copy this bearer. We'll paste that in. And then we do need to hit space before we enter anything else. So we see the space is there. And then we're going to provide our API key. So you can come back, copy your key, paste that in, and then you're going to have your credential ready to use. I'm going to close out and use the one I've already set up from before, but that's the steps you have to follow to set this up for the first time. Let's go down to the rest of the request here. We're going to toggle on send body. We're going to use the JSON body content type, and then we're going to specify the body using JSON with this expression below here. And so this is where we're going to be building up this object that tells KIE AI everything we need to handle for generating a Sora 2 video for us. So let's come back here under the API docs for the Sora 2 Pro image to video model, because we do want to pass in that starting frame reference image of our Olipop product, and start scrolling down through this request parameters section. We can see that the model is required, and so we'll copy that, paste that in here like we already have it. And then we need to expand on this input object, which is a mix of required and optional parameters we're going to be able to use to control and steer the output of whatever we're trying to generate. So for the UGC video, the most important thing we have to do here are going to be these first two. We're going to pass in the prompt, which is what we just generated here for our Olipop Sora 2 character walking through the city talking about the product. And so that's all getting dynamically inserted here. I like to use json.stringify and then dynamically pass in this prompt just to make sure there's no invalid characters that are going to cause some weird validation error when we're running this over a bulk number of prompts. So the text prompt is going to get passed in. That's going to do most of the steering for the video we generate. And the important thing to note here that I didn't call out from before in our prompt writing process is going to be the line where we told Gemini 2.5 Pro to include our username here of the Sora 2 character we generated from before. And we just want to sanity check this when we're building the response that we're seeing at our character's username. That's very important. Otherwise, Sora 2 is just going to invent a character to promote your product in hand. It's critical that you see the @ followed by your Sora 2 username, which again, you can extract here from the profile page and just look at the URL. So that needs to match one-to-one, very important. The next part is going to be the image URLs array. We're just uploading one here, and this is going back to the start of the video where I mentioned we were using this temporary image upload service to give us a web-hosted image we can pass into the Sora 2 video model. We uploaded this for temporary hosting. After 60 minutes, that's going to disappear. And so we're able to continue forward with the rest of the generation as long as we're making this video and passing this off to KIE AI within that 60-minute video. Then going below here, we have size, aspect ratio, number of frames, and remove watermark. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory. Size, you can set this to high quality if you need higher resolution output. Portrait to film it like an iPhone style video. You can also do landscape if that's a better match for what you're trying to do. N frames means number of frames. Weirdly, it's not video frames, but it's actually seconds. So by specifying 15 here, this is going to be a 15-second video we generate. And then remove watermark. I'm assuming you want this to true and don't want the Sora 2 watermark appearing on your output. So that's my setup I'm using here. There are a few more options in the KIE AI API. And so just click on API here, look through these parameters and see if there's anything else you need to get better fine-grained control over your video output. But the big ones are going to be, of course, your prompt and any reference image URLs you need passed in. So that's going to start the generation. We're going to see on the right-hand side here under the output, we get a code of 200 and a message success coming back to us. That's telling us that our video generation request has been accepted, but it's not yet done back. And so what we have to do is go through this practice called polling by using this task ID at the bottom here and making a call to another API endpoint over and over again to see if the video is still processing, if it's done, or that generation has failed. So let's look at that next. So we start the generation request. We're then going to use this built-in wait node for 10 seconds here, just because it can take several minutes to generate these videos. And then we're going to make another request into the KIE AI API to see what the status is of that generation. This is going to be to this URL underneath /v1/jobs/record info. And we do need to pass in a query parameter here called task ID that is going to grab the task ID we got back from our request to start generating the video. So we start generating the video, we get this ID back, and then we're going to continuously check this get status endpoint by passing in that task ID, see if it's done generating, if it's still in progress, or if there is an error that happened along the way. So underneath this first pass here, we're going to see it was a successful request, but we then need to look further at the data here and then the state value to see what's actually happening. Since this is the first request, it says generating, and that's what I would expect. We're going to use a switch node here by searching for switch, and that matches what we have in. We're going to open this up, and we're going to implement a couple of rules to check depending on what that data.state value is to send the automation off to another node. So there's 3 cases we're really looking for: success, generating, and fail. Generating, like you would imagine, means it's in progress. Success means it's been completed, and fail means there is an error that happened along the way. By defining this here, this switch node, we're going to be able to send the automation off 3 different paths. If it is a successful generation, we can go ahead and download the video. If it's still generating, we're going to loop back here to this wait node once again and wait another 10 seconds before fetching the status again to see if there's been any update. That's the root of the full polling approach, where we're going to loop over this until we get a success or a fail state and can decide what to do. The last one here is going to be the failed state. Say there's an issue that happened where like you prompted it to generate something that is, prohibited by the API, or there's like some weird internal issue going on at KIE. You don't want to just be looping this forever. So we're going to check for fail here in the third path. And then we're just going to go ahead and move on to this iterate prompts node once again to continue on to the next prompt and try generating the next video. You can choose how to implement error handling however you want. Maybe you want to send a Slack notification or an email or do something else. That's really up to you on how you want to handle this error and failed state. Let's go back here, assuming this was successful, and close out this iteration of prompt number 1 going through the system. So our generation is successful by checking this data.state value. And the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and download the video that was just generated. We do this by making a simple HTTP GET request, or use the GET method here. And what we're going to do is pass in json.resultjson.resultURLs.first to get the correct download link for the video we just generated. And so this is just something that's a little bit quirky with the KIE AI API. It's going to be giving us this result JSON value. It's going to give us an array. And so we just need to grab the first value from that array in order to download the URL. So we're going to execute this download request. That's going to give us an n8n binary file. And then all we have to do is pass it off to this Google Drive node here, where we upload a file and refer to that as data, as that's going to be the default value that gets sent back to us from the download operation. We're going to give it a name here called UGC add number, followed by run index +1, just to give it a clean name in our Google Drive folder. So we have 1, 2, 3. And we're going to specify where to upload this as the parent folder by URL. And so you can just grab that from your Google Drive, paste that in here, and that's all the config you need to get up and running with Google Drive. You will need to specify a credential, but I'm not going to cover that in the scope of this video. So please leave a comment if you want to see a step-by-step setup guide just for that. But that really covers it here for working with the Sora 2 API and how to pass in and generate consistent characters. The main thing I do want to reiterate once again, because I think I skipped over this in the beginning, is going to be the usage of this character value that we pass in. And so we have protagonist username, or our character referred to right here in the prompt. And then we're going to dynamically insert that as the character we want to be included in our Sora 2 generations. So very important for this to work. And that concludes the n8n node walkthrough here for our consistent character generator. Really hope you found it valuable.
All right, before you go, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Seriously, do it, because we're going to be breaking down all of the AI automations that we use to run all of our businesses. They're super helpful, and we're going to break down exactly how we do them on this YouTube channel. So make sure to like and then subscribe, and then you'll get notified when we publish new workflows that can make your businesses run 20 times more efficiently, just like we're seeing here at the recap and the other businesses that we're running. The other item is join our school community for free. The link's in the description. You'll be able to get this template, this automation that we just ran through in this video, completely for free. You can go to school and navigate to the video that you want, and then you can download the JSON output for the n8n automation. With that, you can upload it into your n8n, clone it, and then tune it for your business and your use cases. So like and subscribe, Join our free community to get this automation for yourself, and we'll see you in the next video.